can't possibly know how surprised, thrilled, and just a little bit terrified I am to be standing up in front of you today. When I was asked to give the commencement speech by the students, my reaction was to cry my eyes out, and I cried for a very long time. I was just so freaking proud of myself. I cannot imagine a greater honor than to be asked by the students for words to carry them into the future. It made me look back at my life and realize how much medicine and science have meant to me. It made me wish my parents were alive to see this moment. And suddenly I remembered the day when I was 18 years old and I walked into my parents' bedroom and I told them that I no longer wanted to be an artist. I decided to make a hairpin turn in my life and become a doctor and later a scientist. And I began to ask myself, what would my life be like if I hadn't taken this path? And the truth is, I simply cannot imagine it. Being a doctor and a scientist have been the singularly most meaningful aspects of my life. Looking back now at the ripe old age of 65, I see that medicine has defined my life in ways I never could have imagined when I was young. I cannot imagine living without this special knowledge. The knowledge of how the human body works, how it gets disease, how we think, eat, live, breathe. Being a physician scientist is like being on a magical mystery tour, a wild, unpredictable tour through the mysteries of the human body, the enigmatic human brain, the awe-inspiring human mind, and the limitless human spirit. I wanted to be a doctor for two reasons. First, my brother was a doctor in the Indian Health Service, and he let me tag along when he was delivering babies and fixing broken bones. I could see how much providing health care meant to those who had so little. I wanted to do that too. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make the world a better place. And the second reason I wanted to be a doctor was because by then I'd realized that art supplies were really expensive, and I was going to need a good job if I wanted to buy more. So what was it like being a woman doctor in the 1970s? Well, at that time, unlike now, women were very much in the minority, and there was a lot of backlash. I used to hear stuff all the time like, I was taking the place of a man who, unlike me somehow, would stay a doctor his entire life and use his career to support a family. And the patients, they would say to me, are you the nurse? No, I'm the doctor. And they'd say, but what does the doctor say? And I'd say, no, I am the doctor. They'd say, can you give me a kiss? No, I am your doctor. And then they'd go, okay, well, just let me know when the doctor comes in. But of course, it was much more than that. The real problem of being female was much more insidious, more devastating. The real problem of being female in medicine was the marginalization and diminishment of your opinion. People decide your value based on how you look, and at least back then, you didn't look right. So I'm thinking that what you all want to know, why you asked me to give this commencement speech today, is that you want to know what it's like to go up against a powerful, rich enterprise like the NFL. What is it like to speak up and publish data that threatens the future of football, the sport that defines America, defines patriotism, defines communities, defines universities? What is it like to do that? I wish I could tell you that it was very well planned, that I had thought long and hard before stepping onto this path. But the truth is, in the very beginning, it was mostly just a matter of circumstances. So I was raised in a small town in Wisconsin, in a football family. My dad played football, my brothers played football, and they had me playing football in the summers. So I grew up loving football, and I idolized football players. So later I became a neurologist and a neuropathologist because the human brain fascinated me. So one day, after studying neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease for about 20 years and examining thousands of brains, I examined the brain of a famous boxer who had a disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. I became immediately fascinated by this unique and mysterious disease. And then a few years later, as luck would have it, or according to Seneca, preparation meeting opportunity, I was asked to look at the brains of football players. And for me, it was the collision of two subjects I was deeply passionate about. And when I saw CTE in the first football player, I realized that CTE from football looked just like CTE from boxing, and I knew immediately this was a very big deal. I knew that football players got orthopedic injuries, knee damage, hip damage, but the realization that they were getting brain damage, I knew immediately that was enormously important. After I found CTE in 10 football players, including 6 former NFL players, I was asked to testify in front of the US Congress. I wasn't even sure what congressional testimony was. All I knew is I had to give my medical opinion on the danger that CTE presented to football. An opinion that would be written into the congressional records and kept in perpetuity. For me, this was the pivotal moment of my life. I spent a lot of time wrestling with the knowledge of what I had found in those 10 football players' brains against my 20-year experience of looking at brains for those same changes and not seeing them. I looked around me, I looked behind me, I kept thinking, surely there is someone else who can stand in and say these things for me. But there was no one else. There was no one else who had my neuropathology background. There was no one else who had my particular cognitive skills or my years of experience looking at brains. It was my moment of reckoning, a moment that forced me to believe in myself, believe in my knowledge, to speak up and state the hard truth as I knew it. And so I did. I said that football players, especially professional football players, were at risk for a progressive, devastating, and untreatable condition known as CTE. So over the next 12 years, we accumulated hundreds more brains and found CTE in hundreds of football players, as well as ice hockey, soccer, rugby players, and military veterans. Over and over to many audiences, I had to keep restating the inescapable truth. I was attacked, I was belittled, and I was often put in circumstances that were deliberately humiliating. And I don't think it helped that I was a female telling athletes in sport leagues how to play or not play their sports. But I pressed forward. I focused straight ahead, I put the blinders up, and I ignored the dissent. I worked like mad. I couldn't stop working. I worked harder than I ever had in my life, getting more cases, gathering more data, writing more papers, applying for more grants, and applying the work wherever and whenever I could. I was compelled to speak up for the voiceless, speak up for the patients and families who suffered, and the patients and families who would suffer in the future if nothing were done. I worked incessantly, because I believed, and still believe, that if I could provide enough data, people would see the light. Now I can say that our determination and perseverance has changed the world. We have changed the public conversation about concussions and mild traumatic brain injury. We have changed policies and public awareness about repetitive head trauma in sports and military service. And we have shown people that sometimes head trauma can lead to neurodegeneration. But just so you know, we are not stopping here. So graduating class of 2019, doctors and scientists for the next generation, here is my advice. And I have a lot of it, so I'm just going to keep it to the high points. Believe in yourself. People will judge you. Don't let those people define you. Believe in yourself and push forward. Work hard. Success is not a matter of luck. Know what you want and go after it. Tell the truth. Let the truth be your guide, even if it's uncomfortable, unwelcome, and inconvenient. Tell the truth even if it's hard to do and people don't want to hear it. Stand up and speak the truth for your patients, because they will not have your knowledge or your power. Be the voice for the voiceless. Tell the hard truth and tell it over and over and over until people listen and it is heard. Make the world a better place. Thank you.